Feudalism, a slideshow by Jennifer Abdeljabbar, Mitchel Day, Dulce Miranda-Vega, and Benjamin Simmons. Throughout history, there have been different ways people have used to govern and control the masses. They created different systems, and in this slideshow you will learn about manorialism, medieval warfare, different obligations that the Lord has in the class levels. Feudalism was a political organization that had a social relationship with the noble lord. Every decision that was taken had to be taken to the king for approval. They had a social structure like a pyramid, where depending what position you had, that's where they would classify you by. Where the person stood on the pyramid determined what they did and what their job was. Class level continued. Everyone was granted land and protection. The Pope. The people believed that the land belonged to God, and the Pope served as God's representative. Kings. Kings granted land to the nobles and claimed ownership of the land. The nobles. They were landlords who the king would grant land to. Peasant. They would do most of the labor. They would work to produce the goods, and they were also owned and did not belong to themselves. The vassal. Those that swore loyalty to them. Attended the Lord's court and helped. Manorialism. A system of economic, social, and political organization based on the medieval manner in which a lord enjoyed a variety of rights over land and tenants. The fall of the Roman Empire and centralized government demanded for the development of manorialism, or serfdom. Manorialism and feudalism implied a stable social order which everyone knew their status. A lord received a piece of land, usually from a higher nobleman or from a king. When he received the land, he also received all that was on it. That means that most of the people that lived on the land also belonged to the nobleman. Fiefs were an estate of land, especially one held on condition of feudal service. Dependent land was farmed by serfs, who were bound to the nobleman, and peasants, who were bound to the land, on a hereditary basis, and had hereditary obligations to the lord. Serfs were not allowed to leave the manor without the lord's permission. A lord controlled at least one manorial village, and great lords might control hundreds. A small manor estate might contain a dozen families, while larger estates might include 50 or 60. Fiefs continued. There was a complex set of personal relationships which defined the obligations between serf and lord. When a manor was attacked by a rival lord, the peasants usually found protection inside the walls of their lord's house. As a result from the security to cultivate fields and protection, the personal freedom of the serf was restricted in many ways. Before a serf could marry, he had to gain the consent of the lord, as well as pay a small fee. A lord could select a wife for his serf and force him to marry her. Chivalry was the code of honor by which members of the military and noble hierarchies conducted themselves within the feudal system. Courteousness, bravery, loyalty, honor, and justness are examples of favorable chivalrous traits of the time. The Christian Church was highly influential in the practice of chivalry across feudal kingdoms, per the nature of the Old Testament. From peasants to kings, the trait of chivalry was viewed as a dutiful trait in the name of God. Knighthood. A knight was hired by a lord as a warrior or a mercenary in exchange for property. The title of knight was given by the appropriate religious head within a Christian church. A knight was expected to demonstrate strong horsemanship and maintain order on and off of a battlefield as commanded by their lord. Medieval warfare. Cavalry, or warriors on horseback, and infantry, or soldiers on foot, were the predominant strategic military formations used in the medieval era. Battle axes, longswords, warhammers, maces, longbows, and crossbows are symbolic of the early medieval era, before the revolutionary introduction of gunpowder. In the 14th century, gunpowder was most notably used in naval warfare in the form of ships' cannons. Gunpowder was very slowly introduced to the battlefield. Feudal obligations. The king had no obligations. He sat at the top of the feudal pyramid. Lords, or barons, obliged to support their king, provide food, provide money, provide warriors, protect and pay peasants. Feudal obligations continued. Knights and vassals were professional warriors, performed military duties. Peasants, free men who worked the land. They had little money and were bound to the land. Serfs, a little bit better than a slave, still bound to the lord. Conclusion. The fall of the Roman Empire left a void in Europe. It lacked a centralized national form of government. Feudalism filled the void. Instead of one single power, you had many. Feudalism is the predecessor to the nation-state. Feudal European society was filled with many complexities, such as chivalry, manorialism, obligations, and classes.